When has easy ever been a good thing? Really think about it for a second. Easy mac and cheese, is it better than homemade mac and cheese? No. Why do we always want things to be easy? The truth is, if we want to grow, if we want to learn, if we want to be better, we have to do things the hard way. We have to do hard things. And that's what our guest is going to talk about today on the Manlihood ManCast.
Warning, applying these principles may change your life. People will look at you differently. You'll walk straighter, live bolder, and find out who you are. This is the Manlihood ManCast. Here's your host, Josh Hatcher.
Gentlemen, welcome back to the Manlihood ManCast. Listen, I want you guys to show your love for manlyhood like this. I want you to go to manlyhood.com/store, and I want you to buy a t-shirt, a hoodie, a mug, a sticker, and I want you to show your manlyhood support to everybody around you. Wear that t-shirt proudly, carry that coffee mug at work, and when people ask you about it, tell them that you are a part of a movement. A part of a movement. It's not just a podcast channel that you listen to or a YouTube that you watch. No, this is a movement of men rising up and stepping in to the high calling of manhood, stepping in to be all that they can be, being better husbands, better fathers, better leaders, and you are a part of it with me. So get yourself a way to represent that. Today's guest is Jay Tiegs. He has been in the military for 25 years and has got some amazing experience and some hard things that he's had to work through in his own personal life. And through that, he's learned that doing hard things is actually the secret to success. Check it out. Jay Tiegs, it is great to have you on the Manlihood ManCast. I've been following the work that you're doing with your Do Hard Things podcast, which I love that name and I love the concept. So you're doing really good stuff, and it's really cool to see the audience that you're engaging with. I'd love to be able to have you share some of your insights with our audience. I think it'd be awesome. So,
well, thanks for having me on. This is it's always an honor and privilege to be asked to come on, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. And we're on the same mission of helping people live a better life. And when I think of the phrase "do hard things," I'm a big patriot, and my girlfriend made this logo, and I absolutely love it. She surprised me with it. It's got the American flag, it says "Do Hard Things" on it. Do hard things has been, I grew up in a broken home. So it's been like my mantra to overcome the hardships of a broken home, fatherless home, a home where there's a lot of physical and emotional abuse. And it enabled me to get out of the situation that I was in. And I saw the military as an avenue to gravitate toward, to basically close the chapter and be around some father type figures and maybe live a life of more meaning and purpose. And being in the military, it's a hard lifestyle. It's a difficult lifestyle. And I leaned on that for my success in the military. And now that I have triplet daughters, and I'm a single father of triplet teenage daughters, there's always challenge. Life just throws things at you constantly. Suffering is a part of the human dynamic. But I look at, taking on challenges in a controlled environment, pushing myself as a way to, it's enabled me to have resilience and push through some very difficult periods of my life. And I just think, one of my favorite books is A Man's Search for Meaning, which you want to talk about suffering. I mean, this is like, Viktor Frankel was in all these, I think he served time in 6 different Nazi death camps. And that was one of the things he talked about, like, suffering is part of the human dynamic. And when we embrace it and find meaning in it through connection with other people and having meaningful pursuits and achievement, you're going to find happiness as a byproduct of that. So that's just been my mantra for success and what I've leaned on to navigate a lot of different bad things that have happened in my life. And I'm always in pursuit of doing the difficult thing and trying to help other people do the same thing.
You mentioned Viktor Frankel, and I do love the book and I love his story. And I know that he was a psychologist or psychiatrist. He actually, practiced. Like, he's not just
philosophy, but he actually practiced and helped people. And I can so picture sitting on the couch in his office and like complaining about my day and having him be like, well, let me tell you about a real hard day.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold my beer and watch this. You know, it's like that. When you read that book, like it puts like, no matter how bad of a day you're having or what kind of, and I've had that, I've had those moments where I just thought my life was just horrible. You pick up a book like that and it's like, wow, you know what, just shut the hell up. Like it's time to sack up and let's maybe change some things in our life. And it gives you a new perspective that things could always be worse.
Definitely. And I think that, I kind of joke about that, obviously, that, I could picture him saying that, but he actually, in observing people at the absolute worst possible adversity you can imagine, I think it does unlock something for us in, oh, my car broke down, or I got a flat tire, or my boss just fired me, like those are nothing, but I think the response is kind of the same, at least that's kind of my take on it when I read the book and I think about it.
Yeah. It just gives you like a perspective. And, I listened to a lot of Tony Robbins and I was listening to him not too long ago. I think it was on Tim Ferriss' podcast. He talks about you have two states of mind. You're either in a beautiful state of mind where you're feeling positive emotions, happiness, joy, gratitude, or you're suffering. And being in a negative emotional state is a form of suffering, being depressed, being pissed off, being angry, feeling shame, all those negative feelings. And you're either in one of those two states. And what I appreciate about, personal development is that, and the people that are listening to this are, we're all working on bettering ourselves. The more that I've engaged in this, it enables me to pivot faster when I'm feeling that suffering, those negative emotions I don't want to feel. It's like, oh shit, I'm pissed off about something right now. Well, what is it? Okay, well, let me detach from that. This is what I need to do to make myself happy. Okay, maybe I'll just go for a run, go work out, go do something with my girlfriend, detach from that moment. Jocko talks about being able to detach. I find the more that I engage in personal development, the easier it is for me to detach my emotions. Not that the emotions aren't valid. It's your survival mechanism telling you that something is wrong, but not to stew on it, right? And so what I've learned over time is that instead of having bad months and weeks, because I was in a depressive state at one point in my life where I had seriously considered taking my life. And in effort to like just the one of the most courageous things that I ever did was choosing to live when I just wanted to tap out. And my daughters were that is what I wanted to. I've had people take their life. I've had 6 people, family members and other soldiers, take their life. So I've been around suicide a lot. When you're around suicide, the propensity is amplified that you could take your own life. I don't know what that is about the psychology of that, but it's true. But I could not fathom doing that to my daughters. And I'm like, okay, how is it that some people just seem to have it all and they seem like their life is together. They have it all and they're constantly happy. Like what? So I just studied like psychology of this because I want to learn how to be happy. And because for most of my life, I felt like I was miserable. I felt like I was suffering emotionally. And that's one of the reasons I became a high performance coach, is to help other people not make the same mistakes that I did and not to suffer like I did for so long. And by studying psychology and just some simple tricks and some simple habits of high performing people, you sprinkle that in your life and it can fundamentally change your life and make you happier. So,
yeah, a friend of mine always tells me that the healing is in the helping.
Yeah. When you're giving and you're helping and you're creating, you can heal and the byproduct of that is also happiness and connection, and it's fulfilling. It's living a fulfilling life. So, not that I want to dwell on the darkness, but if we're going to do hard things, let's maybe go there a little bit. You talked about that point when you were at your lowest. What was the turning point for you? What made you say, no, I'm not going to go here? So I would say this was probably maybe about 8 years ago or so. I was in a point in my career. I've had a successful military career. I was enlisted for many years. I ultimately commissioned. But, as you take on more rank in the military, more responsibility, there are periods of my career as an officer that, anyone that served as an officer knows that you have periods of command, which is like the highlight of your time. And then there's other periods of time where you're doing staff work. It's just not as fulfilling. So my work had become a little bit unfulfilling, even though I'm proud to serve in the military and I love it. I'm still serving. I have about another year left to go. But I just found myself at a low point with that. My ex-wife and I at the time, we were married at the time, were not doing well at all. We weren't connected. But we stayed together for the kids. We're trying to make it work, but it just wasn't, there was just a lot of unhappiness, just discontentment, also dealing with demons from my past, and then dealing with demons from, my upbringing, abusive upbringing, and then demons from, combat and going to war and the situations the Army put me in. It was like a perfect storm of just like, I just felt stuck and hopeless, and like there was no getting out of the Army right away. Didn't see a lot of hope in my marriage at the time. I just felt completely unfulfilled. Just these thoughts lingered and they just got stronger and stronger. I just didn't want to crawl out of bed in the morning, but I did what so many do. Like I had to play that role. I played the role very well. If I would have taken my life, it would have been one of those that it would have been a shocking situation for people, but I was deeply hurting inside. And the only way out I could feel was just, I kept thinking about taking my 45 and going down the back of the hill. I had a whole plan mapped out. And that thought just kept popping in my head. I'm like, no, I can't. So what, I'm like, okay, something is obviously wrong with me. And in the military, when I first came in, I came in about 95. It was very taboo to go seek help. And that culture has changed in the last 10 years or so. But even at that time, like I was still apprehensive about it because I'd been in the military for so long, and I'm like, I'm going to get labeled. It's going to affect my career. I can't really seek help. But I got to a point like, okay, I can't advance in my career if I'm not here. And I talked to some other people, and they kind of opened up to me, some people that I respected, some leaders. And so I sought therapy. But that helped. But what really helped was I started looking at people that I respected the most, the people that some senior officers that I served with that it seemed like they had all their stuff together, had a great family. They were working the stressful job, but they seemed to like just be able to manage it all. And I looked at other people other friends and other people that I just respected. And I started to like look at their habits. Like, what are they doing? And the common denominator amongst all of them was they were avid readers. And I'd never read much. I mean, I went to college and I read the books that I was required to read, but I wasn't an avid reader. And I doubled down on my physical fitness. I mean, physical fitness is a part of military life, but I started doing like P90X and some of these other in-home fitness programs, really committed to it. And I stumbled across one of my mentors he was a Beachbody coach, a very successful Beachbody coach. But what I appreciated about him was he had a lot of YouTube videos on personal development. And he talked about the books that he read, and I got in contact with him because I was doing P90X and whatnot. I had a lot of commonality, but he was outside the Army. So I could kind of talk to him a little bit. I felt like I could approach him a little bit more. And so he got me turned on to a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And in The Slight Edge, it basically talks about your basic daily habits. Like you're either improving or you're declining. It's like if you just read 10 pages a day of a book, you could get through, 15 a year. And one book can fundamentally transform your life. Like we were just talking about A Man's Search for Meaning. That book there was like an eye opener. If you find the right books, it can unlock some things. So I just committed. I'm going to read 10 pages a day, and I'm going to start replacing some negative habits like my drinking. I curbed my drinking. I was playing a lot of video games as like a form of escapism. I got into doing like endurance sports again. I started, where did I spend my time? I forced myself, like on the weekends when I just want to lay around and not do anything, like get up, get my ass out, go to where my friends are, even though I didn't want to go, but I forced myself to do those things. And I started reading, and I really zoned in on my morning routine. I also noticed I was waking up in reaction mode a lot. So I was waking up, work calls, three little girls, problems of the world. And this is one thing that I teach in high performance is like, if you want to own the day, own the morning. I got up earlier. So I went to bed earlier. I wasn't staying up all night playing video games as a form of escapism. I was reading. I was making sure that I was eating right, exercising, curbing the drinking, doing positive things. And those periods were like those months where I was feeling bad, I'd start to have a good day here and there. And the months, went to maybe weeks and maybe a handful of days. And I started becoming a little bit happier and happier. Now, ultimately, my marriage didn't last, and I ultimately got a divorce. So I went into another kind of a slump period when I was in command, where I really had to like keep it all together. That was hard, but what got me through it was the tools that I developed from that period before, and doubling down on the personal development. I really got involved in podcasts. I really got involved in like groups and going to events, and then group coaching, and then one-on-one coaching fundamentally transformed my life, which is like, you know what? There's so many people that need this. I can do this, and I want to help other people, but it's still, I have to stay focused, or I can gravitate down some dark paths. My mother had mental health issues, and mental health issues is quite prevalent. In fact, I just had, it wasn't a friend of mine, but someone that I knew, but I have friends that, someone in St. Louis had recently just taken their life in the triathlon community. And so many of like my friends, they're all endurance racers, all knew him. And he was it was completely shocked everyone. Everyone just thought that he had his stuff together. And there are a lot of people that are suffering in silence. And I if I would have taken my life, it would have been as shocking as that, because I was suffering in silence. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that are doing that. And so I guess that was around a long way around answer of saying, I think it's important to engage in personal development. And if you're listening to this and you're one of those people that are suffering, like, go seek help. It's okay to talk to a therapist, and get a team of people around you that love you and support you. And radical change requires radical change. So you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and lean in on the work, do the hard things that are necessary to take control of your life. You have to take command of your life and your situation. And so many people, I think when you lose hope and you don't see a way out, that's when you ultimately, take your life.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys who have been in that spot, and they don't feel that they can open up. They can't talk to anybody. Yeah. And, we honestly, my take on mental health is I think we're all bat crap crazy. I think everybody is to a degree.
Everyone's got a flavor of it. Yeah.
in all different kinds of ways, but, we're all nuts, which means you're not alone. And I think when we can own that and understand that, then that's the starting place where it's like, and what we have to do then is we have to then understand, if we're all crazy, then stop judging the guy that is struggling, because you're crazy too, and no matter where we're at, we all need some degree of help at some point, and that doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're worthless. It means that just like, we were talking earlier, and I've got Lyme's disease. I needed to go to the doctor and get treatment for that. If you've got a sickness, you got to go get it fixed. If you've got an infection, you got to go get it cleared up. It's health. It's healthcare.
Absolutely. And, the troubling thing about mental health, it's just hard to see. But like you said, we all have a version of, we're all a little off. That's what makes us uniquely us, is that we're all completely different. But I think the pitfall, and I think the problem that we have, is that we're so caught up in what other people think of us. We're so caught up in trying to keep up with the pressures of social media. And because we live in the most abundant time in the history of mankind, like we should, but our basic survival instincts I don't think it knows really what to do. So now we're just making up things that cause the suffering, the comparison syndrome, or I'm not good enough, or because if you really think about, our life here, if you look at your life, it's really pretty damn good. I mean, if you live in the United States, you're still in the top, 99% of all income earners in the world. Like, you look at people in Afghanistan at the time that we're recording this, like it was just a week ago or so, there's people clinging to a C-17 Globemaster trying to get out of Kabul, trying to come here and risking their life and falling off the plane. Like, people would give your worst day is some people's like fantasy, and oftentimes we just lose touch with our own reality. We lose touch with gratitude. And when we, peel back a lot of those things and just take a time out and we start, do the self-care that's necessary, we realize that, hey, life is much better than we give credit to oftentimes.
Jay, I love kind of scrolling through your Instagram feed, which I've kind of done, not for the sake of comparison or anything else, but I do like watching the things that you do because you've always got some kind of adventure in front of you. You know, I mean, that I think looks like a lot of fun. Is that something is that how you challenge yourself, you know, with climbing a mountain or something, you know, is that kind of what challenges you?
Yeah, I'm always putting myself in difficult situations or something where I'm challenged mentally or physically. I gravitate toward physical things just because I like endurance events. I like to see how far I can push the mind and the body. And I mean, like this year, I did a couple 150-mile bike rides. I'm into gravel road racing. I used to be in the mountain. I've done a little bit of everything in the endurance realm, but this year I'm really focused on gravel racing. I've got a couple 50Ks lined up. A buddy of mine, mentor I was telling you about that, actually reached out to me a few years ago, and he's the one that invited me out to go climb the Middle Teton. And that was like, there were periods in my life where I would have probably turned those things down when people invite me out, because there's always something to do, or there's always resistance. Or there's always, I gotta take the dog to the kennel, or I gotta, figure out childcare. When those moments come up now, like if it's a hell yeah, I'm going. And so he basically texted me on a Wednesday. He's like, I know this is short notice. I know I haven't talked to you in a while, but would you want to come out and climb the Grand Teton? I'm like, man, what would it take for me to do that? Yeah, there's a lot of resistance. But I was already off work, and I'm like, okay, I got to pay for a plane ticket. I just got to get my ass out there. And I asked my girlfriend, she wanted to go, and she was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And we just went and did it. And it was an epic adventure where that was a challenge. He said hike. I didn't realize that was like a legit, like mountaineering adventure climb. But yeah, I mean, always finding something to go do, like experiences. This last weekend, what is another last minute? Hey, a friend of mine said, hey, you want to come out to Florida? And I'm like, yeah, let's go to Florida. So we went out there and we kayaked and just had a great time over the Labor Day weekend. And so saying hell yeah, and looking at life, like I find that by having experiences like that and doing things, traveling, you're so engrossed in the moment, and you get to see the world and you get to meet other people. And I forget about, the rest of my day-to-day life that I just find, like when I'm climbing a mountain or I'm in a big bike race, like I'm just focused at the task at hand. And you go through different dynamics throughout that, because in the early part of that, you feel fresh. And then when you start to get hungry, you start to get tired, and you have to start that's when it gets really difficult, and you really have to push through, and you really find that form of suffering. But there's such a level of fulfillment by completing it. And then the level of connection that you get with other competitors that were in that same situation. You have a common bond because you guys just suffered through something very difficult together. And it was like an experience, and I always remember those. I spent there were periods in my time, especially like my early 20s, where I played video games like nonstop. I don't remember a lot of my 20s. Like it was so, yeah, at the time it was a form of escapism, but it was so unfulfilling, unrewarding. It was just a complete waste of time. But when I have these adventures, man, I always have this thing to think about, or it's just a great fond memory where I was able to connect with people, or looking forward to having something on the calendar to go do, or having a purpose to train. It's those meaningful pursuits, having something meaningful to go and do. And so I find I like adventure things anyway. It's maybe one of the reasons I joined the military. So I gravitate toward adventure and doing things. I love being in the outdoors. I find like I'm more connected to the universe and higher power when I'm outdoors. And it's just great. I wish more people would get out there and do that. And that's going to be a fundamental part of my coaching. I'm a fairly new coach, but as I transition from the military and I have more time, I want to take people out on excursions and bring my coaching and take people out like on an adventure like that, so they can get the same sense. A lot of people just don't know. They might be intimidated. They might be scared. They may not know anyone that does those types of things. And they just need, some encouragement, someone that's been there. And if I could bring my coaching to that, the mindset coaching along with it, I think it'd be a powerful experience. So there's some other coaches that do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I know when I think about my own life, there's some realizations that I've had in my own life recently, when you start running into those walls and you're like, why do I keep hitting the same wall over and over? And I'm starting to realize and understand, like if I see hardship or I see pain, I'm like, okay, I'm done. That's enough, and I'm starting to recognize like, okay, so That's why I only go this far. That's why I only succeed this much, because I'm not willing to push past that hardship. So I'm kind of trying to learn and trying to work through that myself. It's funny, everybody's always like, oh, Josh, thank you so much for the work you do at Manlihood. I'm like, yeah, you got to understand, I do this because it helps me.
Oh yeah. And it's same. This is tremendously helpful to me. It's my ability to contribute, but it keeps me focused. And so I'm there with you. I think anyone that's doing this type of work, I think there's a level of selfishness that goes along with it. I love having these conversations. If no one listened to this pod, and I hope lots of people listen to this get a lot of value, but I'm getting value. I was just looking forward to this, just to having a great conversation with you. And I'm excited for other people to hear it. I hope other people get value, but selfishly, I'm looking forward to talking to Josh tonight about something cool in personal development.
Yeah, that's kind of honestly, it's really been a neat experience for me this past, I work way ahead. People are watching this. It might be a couple months before this airs. And so I'm kind of trying to get a whole bunch of them done all at once. So I've been interviewing. Sometimes I'm doing like 2 or 3 interviews a day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the back and forth and listening to the conversations. And it's like every conversation they get to have with somebody, I'm being enriched, I'm learning something. And so I'm really challenged, just hearing your story about, how I love that concept, man, of, all right, so you want to get better, do something hard.
Yeah.
That is, and if I think about the times in my life where I've done better, that's when when I said, okay, let's do this, let's buckle down and let's make this happen. That's when I'm better.
And hard is different for every single person. Like, you don't have to go out and ride a 150-mile bike race. Hard could be, maybe training for a 5K. Maybe you haven't worked out much, and maybe it's just committing to like a program like P90X or something like that. Something I've recently finished up 75 hard, and there's so many different things that you can do. Maybe it's picking up a guitar and learning to play an instrument. That's hard, right? So maybe it's learning Excel, like a computer program, something's going to help you at work. But hard is, there's one of my, a great book called Grit by Angela Duckworth talks specifically about that. What her family does is they have the Do Hard Things Challenge, where everyone in the family at every given moment is doing something that's challenging themselves. They're training in a sport, they're playing an instrument, they're doing something that's training the mind and body, something that's uncomfortable. And that way you're constantly being pushed. And when you're having those moments of discomfort, it enables you to have gratitude for those moments. That's why one of the great things about 75 Hard is, and I still do this when I'm not on program, is I go in, I wake up in the morning, I turn on a cold shower. I didn't used to do that. When I first started 75 Hard and got in that second phase where you had to do that, I hated it. Like, this is miserable. But it reminds me of those times where I was on deployment, and I've went up to 28, I think it's 28 days without a shower, or when we did have a shower, it was just cold. And it makes me grateful for that hot cup of coffee. It makes me grateful for the towel. I turn the knob on hot before I get out, at least one, so it reminds me, like, I have the power. I live in a country where I can turn this on. I haven't always had that. And so that level of gratitude enables you to really take a look at your life, and like the things that really are difficult or the things that are causing you a lot of pain are really just, it's your own subconscious playing tricks on you. And, when you employ gratitude much more frequently, that's fundamentally changed everything for me, is looking at my life and being grateful for what I have, because I was always chasing something. It's never quite content. But when I practice gratitude and I do these little things like that, it makes me far more grateful. So
what does practicing gratitude look like for you? Do you do it as a discipline? Like, maybe what does it look like for you?
When I get up, part of my morning routine, I get up and I don't do a lot of in-depth journaling, but I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I try not to make it the same thing, like, oh, my friends and my family and my kids, but I try to, even little things like my hot cup of coffee, my steaming cup of coffee that I like bulletproof coffee. So I'll put a little butter in there and some MCT oil, just tastes good. I don't know, maybe it's just the shirt that I'm wearing because I'm about to go work out or something like that. And maybe it's a shirt, I got a lot of race shirts, and I'm like, man, I was really grateful for that experience that I got to do that. maybe it's thinking about an experience that I had and try to relive that moment, like closing my eyes. And something I learned is like, put your hand over your heart and like breathe into your heart and like relive that experience and put yourself, like, what were the emotions that you were feeling then? You know, how did you show up in that moment? And you relive that experience. And you can't be pissed off when you're reliving a joyous moment in your life. It's impossible to be upset when you're reliving something like that. But it does take, it's easy. It's something that's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And that's where we get tripped up. Like, that's one of the points in the book, The Slight Edge, is like a lot of these little things that we should be doing, they're easy to do, but they're easier not to do. So we don't do them. We gravitate toward comfort and the path of least resistance. Because it only takes, you could do like a release meditation, like 2 minutes. It can fundamentally like bring you down and make clear your mind. But we don't take the time to do it because it's just like one extra thing you got to do. But it's having the discipline to do those little things, like having that gratitude and taking the moment and getting a pen out and writing out a couple of things you're grateful for. Sometimes it'll just be a social media post in the morning too. Yeah, gratitude, try to relive the moment if I have time to do that, or write it down or make a social media post.
I know that I've read that gratitude is, like, they've done scientific studies, and people who express gratitude intentionally, like what we're talking about here, you know, it actually reduces anxiety symptoms. It actually reduces depression symptoms. And, you know, I remember, you know, when my kids were growing up and they would struggle with anxiety and they'd be struggling, I'd say, okay, quick, name 5 things you're thankful for. And they would, they hated me for it because I was like, oh, Dad, this is annoying. But I know that it helped me. You know, and if it didn't help them, at least it maybe gave them a tool that at some point in their life will help them. But
I do that in the car when my kids are like bickering at each other, because they're all in 8th grade, they're 13-year-old daughters. They bicker. 3 of them. All right, hey, say something nice, compliment one another, or hey, what's one thing you're grateful for? Try to completely shift the conversation. And sometimes I gotta pull it out of them because they're just pissed off at their sister. You know, I'm like, okay, let's calm down. Let's reframe our mindset and try to get them in the habit of doing that. And it's hard to do sometimes. It's hard when you're, you know, flustered, you know, to do it. But the more reps, and I'm hoping that they pick up on all that. I'm sure they are. They're always watching. They'll maybe incorporate that into their life, you know. But I wish I knew that when I was younger, and I wish, you know, someone would have taught that to me.
I love that when you describe that as the more reps that you do, you know, just thinking about those things as a muscle that we exercise, you know, yes, it's in your brain, but no, like that's a really good concept and a good idea, you know, that when you do it over and you repeat it and you try it, you're actually making that part of yourself stronger.
Yeah. Most of the people that I coach with they tend to be active, or they're in a program. So I tend to bring a lot of those principles of working out, because it's one of those uncomfortable things that you do every day. Like we always say, I've got a group called The Forge, and it's Forge Friday. So on Forge Friday, what's that one extra thing that you could do before the end of the day? Everyone else is thinking about beer 30 and getting out of the office as quickly as you could. But if you spent 20, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, it's like that one extra rep in the gym. You know, you're going to beat the competition. If you're in sales, you do that every week over the course of a year, that one extra hour when everyone else is checked out, you're going to win. And what's that thing that you can move the needle forward in your life? It's that one extra rep in the gym. And people really, you know, they like that analogy, because it's just that. Like, what's that quote? I think it's Muhammad Ali or Arnold Schwarzenegger, when they say they do the sit-ups, like they don't count the first 50 or so. They count when it starts to get hard. That's when they start the counting, because those are the ones that matter, right? And so that it's those moments that are the ones that make the difference. The things that are easy to do, the things that are easy not to do.
So let's say we've got a guy that's listening and he is not content with where he's at in his life. Maybe he's got some marriage problems. He's got issues with his kids, not happy with his work. And, you know, when we start talking about those little disciplines, it almost seems like that's not fixing my problem. You know, what do you say to him? I mean, I think it does. It's a big part of fixing the problem. How do we connect that dot from start here to it's going to help?
Yeah. I think it's, I always say, radical change requires radical change. If you want to radically transform your life, you're going to have to do some things that are going to change. And you can't control other people. Like, you might be upset with your wife and want her to change her behaviors, but you can't control her, and you can't always control your kids. But what you can control the controllables. You can control yourself and how you show up. So, I make the case of, if you can start changing yourself, one, you've probably been saying things to your wife for years that you're going to do this or you're going to do that, and you haven't been. You've probably been saying the same things to your kids. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. And you don't, because you're just in this rut. And when you truly start to take care of yourself, I'm a big proponent. You start taking care of your fitness. When you start feeling better, then you're going to have more energy to do the other things as well. You're going to sleep better. Maybe you start getting up earlier, and that's going to lead to maybe, okay, let's start picking up a book and reading that. And let's start fundamentally doing the work on ourselves. And then in time, people are going to notice that change in you. And then they're going to start to believe you, because they haven't believed you for so long. But you have to role model the way, and the change starts with yourself. And so before you can, I think before you do anything else, you really got to figure out, what it is that you want. What is it about your life that you don't like? And what could you do to start making the change? And like I said, focus on yourself first, and then, then try to get the kids, and then you're going to have greater influence, because they're going to know that you're finally serious, I think.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. I think that, we want respect, right? At work, at home, from our kids, we want respect. But when we don't respect ourselves enough to do what we need to do, we're not going to get it. It's almost like a self-defeating, we create the situation where the very thing we want, we're not going to get.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned is, especially from my previous marriage, and hindsight being 2020, it's something that they don't teach in high school, they don't talk about, is the 5 love languages. I failed. I didn't know what the love languages were. My ex-wife and I didn't speak the same love language. I thought that I was depositing in her love tank, and she thought she was depositing in mine. And we're just always, it just got to that boiling point. And, and then my ability to connect with my kids, when I learned that too, it really helped me connect with my kids better. So there are a lot of like little nuances like that, the little things that I just didn't know, that had I known, probably could have changed everything. And then once again, I coach some couples as well. And I've had couples where it's like they have different love languages, and it's like, what is loving to you is not loving to her. She wants you to vacuum the floor. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what she wants you to do. She'll feel like you're loving her by vacuuming the floor and taking out the trash. Do those things and make it a habit to do it every day. And then they start doing it, and it's like fundamentally change your relationship, but it's having that wisdom and that knowledge, hence the compelling case for doing personal development. Some of these little tricks and tools will really pay off dividends.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to marriage and relationships, I think they just think that love is enough.
Yeah.
I love her. It's easy. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the work if you want that to work out, and you have to learn.
It's easy the first 2 years, and then it gets difficult because that you start to fall out of love, and then it becomes work. You become really comfortable with one another, and it actually requires work, and it actually requires some tolerance, and requires you to, have that deposit into the love tank, so to speak.
Yeah, my wife and I we got married in 1998, and we had twins on our 1-year wedding anniversary. So that's we're both kind of multiple dads here. That was a fun experience.
Yeah.
It was the 4th of July, 99. We had twins on our 1-year wedding anniversary. But awesome. We've had ups and downs in our marriage. Most of the downs were my fault, if I'm honest. There's this awesome point that happens when you do the work and you put time in, where you actually yes, there's days you wake up and you don't have the butterflies, right? Like that you get when you first start. But I love that when I see my wife, like it's richer, like when it can grow, I know that you're dating now and, you got a girlfriend now. And, so as it grows, man, the more time that you can invest, it goes from the butterflies and the fun to this like dark, rich chocolate. You know what I mean? It's just, it's awesome. And yeah, I definitely am grateful for that consistency on her part when I wasn't consistent. And I'm grateful that we have been able to really build something special, so I love to talk about it because we've got something pretty cool now, and look, and you can be 20 years in and all of a sudden you have a hiccup that you didn't know was there, when that work that on yourself that needs to come out. We had a rough patch. I think coronavirus drew out the worst in everybody. And so if you've got junk inside and pressure comes, that junk is going to come out, and then you have to start working through it,
Yeah, absolutely. I like how you describe that. It's like, it's the rich chocolate. It's like, it reminds me of like happiness. You can find happiness in a 6-pack of beer after a hard day of work. You sit on your couch, drink the 6-pack of beer. You can play video games. You can find little moments of happiness, but the enduring happiness, like the stuff that is fulfilling, that requires work, just like your marriage, like that enduring happiness with that rich feeling that you have with your wife. That's from having those fulfilling moments and doing the work and respecting and loving one another on a deeper level. And it's the same with happiness or anything else in life. You want to get to the meat, you got to do the work that's required.
Yeah. So I think you've given some excellent advice, really excellent advice. I love this idea of, all right, let's do something hard, but I love that it's not just like hard, difficult, like it's even hard fun, like that's, I like that idea. I like the idea of saying, okay, let's challenge yourself with something that you like or care about,
Absolutely. It's got to find, I heard Brendan Burchard, he's got like this framework. It's like a triangle. And it when I look at the man's search for meaning, it basically highlights that. But there's basically 3 things. If you want to pursue like enduring happiness and you want to grow, there's 3 things that you need to focus on. What are the feelings that you want to feel in life? What are the things that make you feel alive? Gratitude, happiness, joy. What are the activities that make you feel that way? And oftentimes when, like we were talking about earlier, when I find someone that's been stuck, like, hey, well, what are some of the things that you did when you were a kid that you just absolutely loved? And for me, when I started dissecting that in my own life, is like, my fondest memories were camping with my grandparents. They had an old Winnebago. We used to go out in California, and my brother would be there. My grandparents were awesome, and I just loved being there. My parents weren't there, so it was like a break from that chaos. And I absolutely loved it. So I started, I'm going to go get I got a 4Runner with a rooftop tent. I go out in the woods. I go out camping because it's like the things that I loved doing when I was a kid. Riding my bike. Now I'm riding in like races and stuff like that, but I like just going out riding a bike. But what are the activities that make you feel alive? What are the feelings that you want to feel? And then connect the dots. Like, what are the activities? Now start plugging those activities into your life. The next thing is connection. We need deep. The greatest human desires to feel loved and appreciated, and to love and appreciate others. So look at your friends. Are they the people that clap when you win? Or are they people that just give you crap and just they're draining you? Because maybe you need to change up your friend pool. And sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's family that drains you. Sometimes everyone's got a volume knob. So sometimes you got to turn the volume down on some people and kind of detach from it. Now we want to love our family and whatnot, but sometimes we just got to detach from that. But maybe we need to shake up our friend pool and find meaningful, deeper connection somehow. And then it's having the meaningful pursuit. It's doing the things that challenges you, whether it's, pursuing education or climbing a mountain or a race, or maybe it's a workout routine or learning how to play guitar, but something that's meaningful. Humans need to be able to create, and they need to have a sense of fulfillment. When you do something difficult, you find that. So when you find balance and feeling alive, connection, and your meaningful pursuits, you're going to grow, and you're going to have that fulfilling, enduring happiness as a byproduct. And that's oftentimes I think people seek comfort as a way for happiness, but comfort happiness is something he talks about this in the book too. I just had a podcast on this book. It comes up all the time. He says that happiness can't be pursued. It's ensued. It's a byproduct. You do these things and it will just magically happen into your life. And kind of going back to the Tony Robbins bit, like you have two states of mind. You can be in a beautiful state or you can be in a suffering state, and you have the choice. There's always going to be moments of suffering in your life, but it's how you choose at that moment to show up, And when I find myself doing these difficult things, I feel like when life throws its suffering and misery at me, I can deal with it a lot better than I could years ago when I was at my low point.
Yeah, I like to picture the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness is not necessarily a good goal because it doesn't stick around. It's a feeling, whereas joy is a choice, and you choose it. You choose to have that. I choose to be joyful. I choose to express my gratitude. I choose to express joy. I choose to smile even though my world is falling apart, and that's not easy to do.
It's not. And that's why the more you get into the gym of personal development and you just do it more, you lift more weights and you do the work and put the reps in, it becomes easier to pivot. But it's a practice. It's a daily conscious effort and practice. Every day I got a podcast on, I'm reading a book. And over time it has enabled me to really, really like gain a lot of wisdom, and I can detach. I still have bad days. I still get pissed off. I still lose my shit on my kids sometimes. I'm not proud of those moments, but I can pivot, and I'm a hell of a lot better than I was 10 years ago. I'll tell you that. And so the more that you engage in it, and it's fundamentally made my life better, and I am happier now because of that.
Awesome. I like to ask all of my guests this question, and there's two questions I like to ask. The first one is this, Jay. If young Jay walked in the room, he's 5, 6, 7 years old. Now let's, ignore the sci-fi stuff here. There's what happened? You get into the astrophysics of all this. Ignore that part. But young Jay walks in the room and you've got the opportunity to speak into his life. What do you want him to know?
I think something that would have helped me, if I could go back and change some of I've had a wonderful military career and I would do it all over again. I wish that I would have really focused my attention on school a little bit better and just did a better job pursuing my education. I didn't have a family dynamic that, I was one of the first people to actually graduate high school. So the military was a way for me to escape that, but I wish I would have been able to go to a military academy, or maybe went to ROTC and maybe start because I ultimately commissioned, but I wish what would my life have looked like had I commissioned earlier? Maybe how much greater an impact I would have made in the military had I started sooner in that route. So that'd be one thing that because a lot of times I just blew off class. I was always smart enough to, kept my grades up, but I just did the bare minimum. And I'm like, wow, I really wish I would have doubled down on that. And I wish I would have pursued that, or maybe had someone in my life to kind of coach me along and help me along with that avenue. And what would my life have been like, or how could I have made an impact on the Army that way?
That's a really insightful and thoughtful response. I love that. All right. Then the next question is this. We've got men of all different kinds, different ages, different persuasions. They're listening. What is your best advice for them today?
My best advice is, if you're listening to this podcast, they're obviously engaged in personal development. And I think that continue to engage in it. And I think that there are different levels of personal development. You can read books and you can listen to podcasts, and you can do the learning on your own. But if you haven't find a group to be a part of, like a mastermind group, get involved in group coaching, get involved in one-on-one coaching, it will fundamentally change your life. It's fundamentally changed my life and my outlook. And it's leading to a career. I'm so excited. I didn't know what I was going to do after the military, which is one of the reasons I got so depressed too. It's okay, I'm in this bad situation. I don't even know what life is like after the military. I can't walking into corporate America after, doing this fulfilling work. And then even then it's like, this work is not being fulfilling because I want to end my life. What am I going to do next? But when I feel like all my experiences in the military, being an instructor, commander, all the leadership positions that I've held, and then my experience, which pulled me, the personal development, which pulled me out of this dark spot in my life, really set the tone for this next chapter of my life, because I literally had no idea what I was going to do. And then when I went down to, I was at an event, and I'd already been participating in group coaching and whatnot, but I went to the Brendan Bouchard event, the High Performance Academy, and I didn't even know he had coaches. I'm like, would you want to be a part of my team and be a coach? And I'm like, hell yeah, this would be awesome. Like, this is my calling. And so it was a big investment, and I plunked the money down, not knowing I was going to get into, and I got involved in that community, started doing the training. And this is it for me. I absolutely love helping other people. And yeah, so I'm jazzed about, like, if you're on there's a ladder of personal development, keep climbing that ladder, keep climbing, get deeper, get engaged in it. It's going to fundamentally transform your life. And when, like, one of the questions I love is, like, who loses if you don't win? Like, when you're winning, like, your family is winning, your marriage is better, you're more connected with your kids, people at work with that depend on you get a better version of you. And so of all the things that you can engage in, like personal development, working out, and taking care of yourself, make that a priority.
Awesome. Very good advice. So if our guys want to get in touch with you, they want to see the work you're doing, maybe learn about your coaching, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Jay Tiegs, Tiegs. I've also got a website, www.jaytiegs.com, JAYTIEGS.com. You can look up the Do Hard Things podcast, but interview like you're doing, and teach personal development like you're doing, same type of work. And those are the best ways. Feel free to reach out to me on social media. Would love to connect.
Awesome. Jay, I really have enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we could probably talk for another hour.
Yeah, no, I love it.
So maybe we'll have to do another podcast maybe later in the season or for next season at some point, because I think we've got some really cool. I'd love to hear more about your adventures and the things that you've done. And I think that would be pretty cool. So
anytime, let's do it. I absolutely appreciate the work that you're doing. I love the work that you're putting out there. And like I said, we're all, only 10% of people are engaged in personal development, like 10%. Like, there's so many people out there that need to hear the message of personal growth and development. It can fundamentally change your life. And there's so much angst in the world right now. It's like, how the hell do we change the world? If you want to make the world a better place, make yourself better. That's where you start. So thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the conversation.
Awesome. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Jay Tiegs, we really appreciate you. We appreciate the work you're doing, and we want to support you. So guys, all of you, go to the show notes, click through to the links, follow Jay so you can see the work that he's doing as he's coaching men and women to live lives as high performance as they can. He's encouraging guys to do things that are hard. Let's show him some love. Listen, if you appreciate this episode of the Manlihood ManCast, or any episode, what I want you to do is I want you to subscribe or follow the podcast or follow the YouTube channel. I want you to share it with people. I want you to leave a rating, a review. Let's get the word out about what manlyhood is, what it does, and how we can support other men on their journey to becoming better. Listen, I love you guys. I care about you, and I'll see you next time.
If you want to be a better man, check out our website, manlyhood.com, for blogs, videos, and more from our Manlyhood team. And you can also join our private Facebook group, Manlyhood Man Cave, where you can meet up with a band of brothers who will challenge you and help you on your journey of manhood. This episode is produced by Hatcher Media for manlyhood.com. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to the show. Tune in again for more of the Manlihood ManCast.